listening to the MLS Fantasy Insider, bringing you weekly tips, tricks, and advice for the official MLS fantasy game. All right, hello everyone. Welcome to tonight's episode. This is going to be an interesting one because we have a 2-week game week here, so it's pretty wild. What you will see is we're going to be focusing on the double game week players this week, and then next week we'll do a little episode with single game week players because you all can thank the rolling lockouts, as Blayne pointed out during our prep this week, that we can split the episode like this, and it works really well. So I've got some social out there already. Please be kind and share the social out there on Twitter and on Reddit. And so we will get started as soon as I hit the record button.
Recording in progress.
There it goes. And yeah, forgive me if I had to bounce out at any point to go help with Baby Roo. He was almost on the episode tonight. My wife was grading, but ended up not having to have an appearance by Baby Roo. All right. That's right. Let's see, we got all of our stuff. All right, well then, let's get this going. Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 27 of the MLS Fantasy Insider, our review of round 24. This episode is brought to you by the Chicago Fire rebrand, because you know what? When you do something right, you deserve credit. That's an awesome logo. It's fantastic. Check it out. It's amazing. Brought to you by the amazing Patreon supporters of MLS Fantasy Insider and MLSFantasyBoss.com. I'm your host, Reid Connolly from MLS Fantasy Boss, and tonight I'm joined by my co-host, my partners in fantasy, Mr. Blayne Riffle and Ashley Savage. How are you all doing tonight?
I'm good.
Yeah, I'm doing awesome. Thanks.
Yeah. We almost had Baby Roo on the show with us, so my wife was doing some grading, and so there was a chance that he may have made a cameo and been this week's special guest, but he did not. And so now I may have to bounce out to help with the bottle, so if I disappear, you all will be in good hands. But we are talking about a strange week this week. These 2 weeks. This strange double week, single game week round. I don't know. What I'm getting at is round 24 spans 2 weeks. This Saturday and Sunday and next Saturday and Sunday are both part of the same round. So it's a double game week for sure, but you just have a lot of time in the middle. So we've switched up a little bit of our player recommendations section, part 3 of the show, and we're just going to focus on double game week players this week, this episode, because, as Blayne pointed out in our pregame, thank you, rolling lockouts, all of the teams on a double game week, you will be able to see their first game this weekend for the first half of round 24, and no single game week teams play. So you don't have to worry about the single game week players for another week, which will give us plenty of time to talk to you about which single game week players you may want to work into your team during our next week's episode on October 11th. So be sure to save some room. That'll be part of what we talk about in the third half of our show, third section of our show. You can't have 3 halves. That's ridiculous. So that's what we have going on for you with this episode. I hope you like it. It's kind of cool. Hello to everyone in chat with us. Hello to everyone who's listening to us later on this podcast, on SoundCloud, or whatever podcast platform you prefer. Let's start talking about this round 23 with a recap. How'd your teams do? Blayne.
Oh, you have to start with me.
I have to start with you.
I finished on an 87.
Yes.
I'm not really at all disappointed given the way the season's gone with my score. I'm being hollered at by Lily. Come here. Lily's gonna make a cameo. This week was just weird. I'm not upset with my score.
Daddy, if someday it'll be okay. Could you just someday it'll be okay if like me and mommy stayed home and you stayed in with your friends, girl?
I don't know.
For a long
Good
time,
question.
me and mommy go and eat lunch at Incredibles and stuff. That's how we doing, and then just come.
Reid, you're gonna have to cut this from the podcast.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Hey,
Maybe.
give me a hug. Maybe. Hey, give me a hug. Give me a hug. Okay, go play in the other room. Go play in the. Hey.
Yes. And then take a nap together.
So while Blayne is away, I'll go ahead and give my recap because Blayne and I played each other this week in one of the head-to-heads. And what you may recall from last week is Blayne didn't point that out at any point during the show. Blayne also didn't point that out during any of our post-show conversations or sharing of teams. But I looked at it. I saw who I was playing this round, and it was Blayne. And I knew that even though Blayne was trying to keep it on the down low, that I wasn't going to actually share my final team this week. So Blayne did get an 87, and I'll let him talk about that in just a second. But I beat Blayne with an 89 after losing to Patrick by 1 point. Last week, 2 weeks ago, I came out with Blayne.
After recounts, right? Like it wasn't
right.
like you tied and then yeah.
Right, we had a draw, and then Skylar came in and said, no, Reid, you lose. I beat Blayne by 2 solid points. 2 solid points. I got 89 points, which I thought was fine. I mean, I think a lot of us scored in those high 80s. Maybe people got low triple digits, but I think a lot of us scored in the high 80s, 90s. I think that was a pretty solid score for this week. And my team was fine. Basically, if you got in the 80s, you had a lot of solid players, maybe a couple of duds, but you just didn't hit on some of those guys who return a score in the teens, some of those hat trick guys or some of those brace guys. Like, that's what it was. So if you had those high 80s, low 90s, you had a good round. You may not have made a Champions League. I don't think that would have made someone fall out unless you were really close there on the bubble. But I beat Blayne, so Blayne.
That's all that matters at the end of the day. I also got 89. I did not beat Blayne. I wasn't playing him, but I didn't beat him. Yeah. What is all the kids? Where's yours? You're gonna walk in now too? I was it fine? Sure. Am I happy? No, because I'm still hunting for that Champions League spot and I'm within touching distance, but I picked up Reid Diaz, which I got a little bit of flack for, but he got a 10 off my bench, even with just the one game, so I'm happy. But then I just choked with Chicho and Mora and Mihalovic, just were all busts for me. Kind of like you just said, I feel like I hit enough, but I didn't hit it. Like I didn't have Brian White, I didn't pick up anyone from DC, but I didn't gamble with New England. I know a couple people had Bo, but yeah, just generally not a fantastic week for me, but not bad enough to complain.
Blayne, would you like to finish your original summary?
Yeah, not upset with my score of 87. It's just Champions League was pretty much out of the question unless something really crazy went. I went with differentials pretty much across the board and still came out okay. Like I had a Gimme Chara captain this week. Did the exact same as Barco, but that first game could have gone totally different for Portland and he could have really blown up. Fafa Picault on the bench came in for me huge in an 11, and I'm just frustrated. MLS stuff, just typical because MLS. I had a red dot 4 million defender that came in for a single point in the second game. A guy I thought was injured, and so I lost my head-to-head with Reid because my scrub played in the final minutes of that last game. And
but I'm going to say, I think this is a good learning moment for other people, though. I don't mean it to be at your expense, because what team was he on?
DC.
Yeah. So my only go-to injured people are Iko Para. Right? I mean, literally, Iko Para. Never going to play. There's no physical way possible. Or who's ever on a bye or the last game. That I'm due. It sounds like I'm talking shit to you, and I'm not. But haven't we all had that happen to us at one point or another, where you pick a guy and then you think they're definitely hurt and you don't check, or they're on the. Do you know what I mean? I think it's such a valuable. Again, not that I want it to be at your expense, Blayne. Such a valuable thing to remember where you pick your scrub from, right?
Yeah, and I'm a huge advocate for picking an early game scrub that you know is not in the 18, just to get it out of the way. Lock it in early. That way there's no whatever on this. And I thought I had done that with this one. I'm looking for that first game. Again.
Right, but the problem was you picked a scrub from DC, which you haven't mentioned, who was on a double game week. And so that's always the risk also for everyone to take away is when you have a guy from a double game week who's a scrub, there's always that chance, especially with rotation, that something happens, some of the scrubs get played, and that's why last week I was saying you wanted to look at New England and Columbus primarily for your scrub players because they only had one game, and so that was just one game you had to keep an eye on. You can never just take into account what crazy substitutions could happen near the end of a game, but much less of a chance of that happening because that guy's locked after that first game.
Yeah.
And that's what happened to you, Blayne. It was the second game when he came in, right?
Oh yeah, second game that got me. Trying
Yeah.
to see if he was even in the 18 for the first game.
Again, not at your expense, just a good learning moment.
Oh yeah, and I did not like Columbus for that one because you never know who's going to play anyway, and I knew I had a busy day. They've got what, 8 defenders, and I think all of them have started a game this year. It's crazy how much rotation there is on that team. Yeah, and my guy I went was not even rostered in the first game with the red dot.
Yeah.
Like it's just sometimes you can't see that second one, and I was not touching Columbus knowing what my weekend looked like, so I went with somebody who I thought had been out for a long time.
Yeah. I'm sorry. And
No,
also, I've been there.
What it
Right.
is.
For me, I've seen a lot of people do this too. Aiko Para for me is like on the games or on the weeks when you want to and you're not sure. Like Seattle is a great one, right? Where all of those listed defenders play, every single one of them. So like if Seattle's the last game, you're not going to pick somebody from them to be your scrub because it could go any person. And so there's a couple teams like that, and I think Columbus kind of is one of those teams. So I totally understand. I had a scrub from that team and was nervous to look because I didn't have anywhere else to go with it. But Aiko Para is my favorite scrub because he is. And then I think making sure you pick someone not, on a double if possible. But I see your logic, and I'm shocked it didn't happen to me too.
Well, let's talk about the actual other takeaways that we have from this round. Ashley.
Yeah. Portland, where are your goals? And why did none of your goals include any of the people that we thought that they would, except for Blayne? I feel like we all kind of got suckered in after that 6-goal game, and we talk about this a lot, that Lightning doesn't usually strike twice. It's not like I expected them to score 6 goals again, but oh my gosh, every time I watched, checked the scores, I couldn't believe what their goal output was. So that was a little disappointing for me. And then I think it's time, and I don't know if we've been doing it intentionally or unintentionally, but Brian White deserves to be talked about. I think he probably deserved it at some other point in the season from a fantasy perspective because he was scoring goals, not plenty of goals, but goals before Galt got on the team. And now that they're getting that midfield to click, obviously a hat trick is a hat trick, but he's got 5 goals in 7 games before the hat trick. So again, nothing super crazy. He wasn't putting up doubles in any of these games, but a lot of these games he's been getting goals, and Vancouver's looking to be in the playoff hunt. And I think that with the pieces he actually has around him, again, a hat trick is going to make you stand out more than any other week, but I think he's worth having some conversations about. And my last takeaway, and it might be a hot take, is Seattle don't need Nico Ladero to produce from a fantasy perspective. I don't know if I feel very confident saying that from a winning perspective, but I might. The goals are coming from places that we don't usually talk about in fantasy, right? Christian Roldan getting in the net both games this week, Madronda getting in assists. I think from a fantasy perspective, it was always Nico Ladero, maybe Rui Diaz, and then someone else if you're just trying to be a differential. But from a fantasy perspective, I think there are a lot of other players in that Seattle midfield defense, maybe even Bill and Freddie Montero as strikers, that are picking up decent points. And this weekend on a double was a great example of that.
Blayne, I'm going to bounce and grab a bottle for Baby Roo. All three of us had baby time tonight. So you all keep going, and when you guys are finished, give me a break, and then head into the housekeeping. So be right back.
Yeah, first one I had was it's getting hard to make differential picks. When you're looking at a bunch of guys, and then you see a bunch of 7s and 8s across the board. Most of my differentials ended up right in there. I mean, Rusnak was a 7, Barco 8. I know he wasn't really a differential, but Yimi was my differential, and he was an 8. Like, it's really hard to get ahead in a game like this when a lot of your big points are coming from are all the same. Like, where do you turn to? Who do you go with? Jack Price had himself a decent week again, but still right in that hunt for what everybody else was scoring. Forwards were the same way, lots of 7s, 8s, and 9s. Kind of digging deep, trying to find out where you can steal a few points here and there, and I think that's making it really hard. It was really hard to get into Champions League because of that, because even when you try the differentials, they're still scoring on par with everybody else. And I struggled to find a way ahead this year. And then it's lots of multi-goal scorers again. This week it was full of them, goals and assists for the same guy. I mean, you look at the Dream Team this week, and it's like 14s and 15s across the board in the attacking side.
Yep.
That's crazy production. Predicting where that's coming from can be tough. It's all over the place. And then, despite all of that craziness, both Shallowy and Russell got on the score sheet multiple times. Shallowy had a 2-goal game, and then a goal and an assist, so 4 tallies for the week. And then Russell had a single and then a brace. And so they're firing right now. Paolo didn't start either one of those games, which is huge news for Kansas City. Just that the guys are finding a way to score with or without Paolo out there. And honestly, this goes back to a couple of seasons ago when Shallowy and Russell both had double-digit, 10 goals, 10 assists on the year. They started on either side of Kyrie Shelton, and that's what they've been doing, and they seem to just have got that rhythm back. So watch for that. That front three does a lot of damage, and those 2 wingers score like crazy in that system.
Yep.
So just keep an eye on that. I know it's huge, but that's your insider formation information right there.
Yep.
If Polito's out and it's those 3 across the top, look for something big to happen, because they're used to playing together. They've had a lot of success playing together, and for as good as Paolo is, these 3 together are just a dynamite unit going forward. And I want to see Paolo back. I'm not saying this is going to put Paolo on the bench, but you never know with the way Vermes likes to go, and with the results that they're getting, it can be really hard to try to break up a chemistry like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Cycling through a couple of reads, because he had some good points I don't want to miss. Orlando seems like they're getting a little healthier. DK not called up, and also finding some form. I would expect him to continue that. I don't know that it's fair to call it a snub, but to not be called up and to be getting back into form in MLS, I would expect him to continue that. NYCFC this week looked abysmal. And not getting any goals with most of their team. I'm sure we'll cover this. I know Tinnerholm had a pretty nasty injury. A couple of people not playing, but Tati playing in the second, still nothing. So it'll be interesting to see how they look in the already third derby in what, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, like real tight congestion. And then Reid reiterated what you just said is. And SKC goals all over the place. Trying to figure out who to grab is tricky, but yeah. Well, I think without Paolo, it's a little more straightforward, but still, they're definitely spreading them around over there. So, okay. Housekeeping. So. League leaders. Oh, great. Perfect timing, because we don't do housekeeping.
Perfect time.
It's going to feel really awkward.
Okay. Well, I'll get my quick recap then, because it is really quick. Oh, you did it for me? Fantastic.
It's probably better than how.
No. It's all good. I'm sure you did fine. Yes. So let's go into housekeeping for Yeah, housekeeping for round 24. Okay, first let's have a congratulations to all of the league winners and current leaders of the MLS Fantasy Boss network of leagues. Still on top in the MLS Fantasy Boss and the Reddit Classic League, we have Nawajawa. Over in Discord, we still have Feeling Kinda Rad. And over in the Patreon Open head-to-head, we have a change. It is now back to Garth Butchers, who is leading the way there. Over in the head-to-head side, I think we had one change, maybe the Patreon League, but Sombrero FC is winning both the Discord and the Patreon head-to-heads. In Discord, he has a score of 21-0-2. Over in Patreon, it gets a little tougher. 18-0-5. Then over in the Invitational, Skylar is still winning 17-0-6, but only by points. Matt Pollard is right there. And then for anyone who has been a longtime player of the head-to-heads from my leagues, I do have a playoff system, at least in the Invitational. I may not have it in the Patreon, but I usually have a playoff system, so the teams will start being weeded down over these last 4 rounds, because guess what? We are now in the Fantasy Champions League time. That's right. All the qualifiers are over. If you made it, congrats, you have another shot at some prize money this year. And these last 4 rounds of the season is going to be where that is decided. And so also in my leagues, that's where that will be decided. So it's anyone's game still, but Matt Pollard is making a push for the #1 spot this year. So it'll be good times. Specifically about round 24, the start time. Already told you this is a long stretched out two-week round. So the first games of the double game week teams start this Saturday, October 9th at 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that is with the New York Red Bulls versus Miami. Later that day at 8, Cincinnati plays Philadelphia. And then later at 9, Seattle plays Vancouver. So those are the teams that are going to be playing on October 9th. That's a Saturday. After that, we have games on Sunday, and then we have an entire week before more games. But as I said, this is a double game week, so the teams who are on a double are Seattle, New York Red Bulls, Miami, Vancouver, Colorado, Philadelphia, Miami, and FC Cincinnati. My FC Cincinnati. Of those teams, 2 of them have a double home game. That is the New York Red Bulls and FC Cincinnati. And 3 of them have a double away game. Miami, Philadelphia, and Colorado. Fortunately for us all, we don't have to worry about falling down Blayne's folly of picking a switcheroo scrub option because FC Dallas is on a bye this round. So it is absolutely going to be simple for you to have a player who you know will not play. Now, suspensions and injuries, I'm going to kick it over to Blayne as usual, but I do want to let you know part of the reason why this week is so long is because there are call-ups in international games being played, and so players are going to be missing, players are going to be playing outside, some players are going to be playing 3 games in a week before they come back for the second round, and it's going to be crazy. So expect this to be a heavy because MLS week, and we have one update from Christian, who joined us last week on the show, about this, and he says a lot of the same players will be called up, and those players will be unavailable for the first leg of the double game week, and they'll likely be rested for the second leg, but we could see some come back in time to play, but don't count on it. So there's going to be a big roll of the dice this round. If you are a member of the Discord community, be sure to check the pinned post in the main thread, because that is the main channel, because that is where Tyler Ransnader is getting our usual call-up list, the great sticky of all of the injuries, absences, cards, etc., that he is working on that right now. But Blayne has an early preview of it for this episode, so take it, Blayne.
Yeah, our red cards for the weekend actually all affect double game week teams, so that starts off with the bang. Wagner for Philadelphia picked up 2 yellows to get himself suspended. Reynoso picked up a red card late in the game, so he is going to be out for the first leg. That's a huge one for the double game week. And then a guy who's been seeing a lot of minutes, I expect this one to get overturned, but Estevez for Colorado picked up a red card for what I can only think they saw was his foot coming over the top of the ball. but he was upright the whole time, and Paolo took a dive on that one. I expect a fine there. Usually you do not see a suspension from that, but since it was awarded a red card in the match, you could see João Paulo actually pick up a suspension on that, but I highly doubt it. They've done it before. They've done it before when guys get a red card following a dive like that and taking injury.
But VAR confirmed it, which is the one thing that would make me think not a chance that they flop around like that. But I think it'll be overturned, but nothing's going to happen.
I expect Estevez to be available. Just watch for that because we've seen crazier things in MLS before. I think the only injury I caught so far was Tinnerholm came off early. Everything I've heard, it looked pretty bad, so don't expect him to be around. And then the 2 yellow card warning guys I know from double game week are 2 of the big names. Roger Espinoza for SKC and Abubakar for Colorado are for sure on warning. They would miss the second game if they pick up 1 to start. Red Bulls have Yearwood, Edwards, and Reyes also on them. They're playing the double. Those were the big ones I saw. A lot of them were not dealing with having to miss that second game. Thankfully, we don't have too many players up like that right now. Internationals, same as before, as Christian said in his message to us. The big addition is Giassi Zardes was added this time. He was available for the last set of games here in MLS, but he is the big name that got added from MLS. And I think everything else, you might have a few guys that are back that we weren't expecting to have back. But other than that, I would say pretty much status quo on that. Rosters, I think, are out across the board. And a lot of your European internationals are also going to be traveling as well. And they've got games Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So if you want some of those guys, like I know I do, watch when their games are. If they're those Tuesday games, they're probably going to be available for the weekend. If they're playing later in the week, they're probably not going to be available for the MLS second weekend.
And then we had a note from Shannon in chat that said she believes that Andres Reyes from Red Bull is also out. So that's another name to keep an eye out on. All right, well, thank you so much, Blayne. Like I said, if you want to have the full update, the latest update of injuries, call-ups, cards, head over to the Discord community. Join that community. It's free, a lot of fun, and very helpful. A lot of players who are in the top 10 even this season, and a lot of our new players who have been scoring very well, made the Champions League and all sorts of things like that, have credited this community as one of the reasons why they've succeeded. So head over there. It's simple. Head over to MLSFantasyBoss.com/Discord, and that's the easiest way to find out how to join our community that's pushing 900 members. So, I mean, I'm hoping to hit 1,000 before the end of the year, but maybe next season. We'll see. All right, now let's move on to player targets, double game week player targets for round 24. All right, let's talk double game week player targets for round 24. But first, as always, let's talk about some of our most promising games that we're looking forward to from a fantasy point of view. Ashley.
Yeah, from this section, I hate to preview, even though I won't be here next week, but there are a few single game weeks I kind of like more than some of these double game weeks. But for the section of double game weeks we have coming up, I could be very wrong here, but I just have this weird gut feeling about Miami at Red Bull. I think it could be really interesting. I think both teams have very inconsistent and kind of hard to judge when they're going to not even fall apart, but just do well. Miami have been playing a lot. They've been on a lot of doubles. They're on another. So I'm interested to see how that plays out for them. This is a homer pick, but is also very fantasy-based. I'm also interested to see Vancouver come to Seattle. Seattle's going to be missing a lot of players. Vancouver is definitely on a hot streak, and they're definitely vying for contention for playoffs. And Seattle, doesn't ever like to lose a Cascadia game, especially at home. It's going to be the first time that we have a bunch of different health and safety protocols put back into place in Seattle, which I don't anticipate would affect attendance, but could. And so, I'm just interested to see coming off the weeks that both teams had, how that game could turn out point wise. So, yeah, that is those are the two games I'm looking at the most.
Blayne, what about you?
Yeah, that's interesting because I mean, it's easy to pick up the Red Bulls versus Miami game. I'm just worried about that being a little bit of a trap game for them. But I like the New York Derby again. I like Red Bulls hosting New York City with the way those are going. Tinnerholm's out. New York City has not been in the greatest form. I think Red Bulls are kind of figuring it out again a little bit. They've got some guys that are starting to fire. The midfield seems to be solidifying a little bit more. The rotation seems to not be there quite as much, and the subs coming in. So I like that second game, and then you throw in the first game with hosting Miami, and that just makes Red Bulls kind of both match up really tasty for me. For double game week teams, I like Philly at Cincinnati. I think that's a good one. I like Philly's double game week options there. I think that's a good start to the week. And that's a team that they can easily pick on. But on the other side of that, I like FC Cincinnati versus Orlando on the back end of the week too. I'm kind of targeting those second games, and we start looking at 2 bites at the apple. I'll suffer through a Philly game where FC Cincinnati probably shouldn't put up many goals, maybe one. May try to poach one there, but it's that second game against Orlando that really is tempting to go with and possibly load up. I know people are talking Orlando's coming up. They're back and forth. I just haven't seen it. I think this is a team that can really be picked off and hit for multiple goals. And with the way Cincinnati's playing, with some of those guys that they have there, I think they can exploit it. Could be a high-scoring affair, but I'm really looking at Cincinnati for points in that second game.
I am one of those people who's looking at Orlando to have a little bit of an uptick. But I will also add for Philly at Cincinnati that we now have a GM, Chris Albright. So he's got a little bit of knowledge about Philadelphia. Maybe he can drop and we only lose by a couple of goals. So there you go. No, those are all really good games. I'm going to double up on, or maybe triple up actually, on New York Red Bulls versus Miami. I think the Red Bulls have been doing pretty well. Actually, to tie into our next section, I like some of the defensive options that Red Bulls have with both of their games. One, because of Miami's poor form, and then two, because some of the scoring rut that New York City has been in. So this derby will definitely be interesting, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, you guys have touched on a lot. I think the teams that maybe we're a little bit unsure about from the double game week perspective are definitely Vancouver, Colorado, and of course I don't think anybody wants Miami, but I think those are some of the ones. Like I'm interested, but I'm like I'm not sure. Vancouver versus Seattle, that's a little bit tougher than I necessarily would have liked. Just like against Sporting Kansas City, a little bit tougher than I would have liked, but I see some opportunities. Colorado on the road is just kind of rough right there. Definitely chances for someone like Abubakar to be gone. So a little bit more hesitation from those teams, but I think you guys covered a lot of the games to look forward to, the double game week games to look forward to from a fantasy perspective. So let's talk about keepers, defenders, and clean sheets. Blayne, let's start with you.
Yeah, two of my top 3 clean sheet shouts this week, or for this round, are Philly and the Red Bulls. I think you've got pretty much everything you need there. I don't think you would be absolutely crazy if you wanted to run, say, a Cornell to Blake keeperoo this week. You're cutting it very, very tight on that second one, but if Miami's not getting much done, you may be sacrificing 10 minutes of Red Bull clean sheet to be stuck with Cornell if you don't want to go over to Blake. But if Red Bulls concede early in that game, you just get switched right on over to Blake and you call it a week. You could do that. I'm looking more at picking somebody on the second weekend and taking Blake as my number 1. I like his matchups a little bit better, even though they're on the road. I think it's a little bit more solid defense. But I wouldn't be surprised if I switch back and forth to Cornell a couple of times before lock, just because I think both of those are really good options. I'm finding it hard to go 3 deep on either team, or 3 deep includes grabbing a keeper and an extra defender, so it's not like I'm really losing anything. I'm not trying to pick up an attacker somewhere else. So that's my clean sheets, and then pick somebody that we'll talk about next week on the back end. Right now it's on Blake, and then I've got because of that, I've got Gutman and Glesnes for this. With Wagner out, it makes Philly a little bit harder to pick. I know there's some other names that are going to be talked about, but I like Glesnes on the set pieces. I like them when they've got the clean sheet shouts, and I think this is a better week for him. And then every once in a while, he just goes off, and I think I'm going to try to catch one here. Gutman's not point chasing for me at this point. I've got him in draft. I've been taking him as my number one Red Bull defender when it's not Tolkien playing a team where he can get forward. Gutman has been my go-to all season over any of the other Red Bull defenders, and I know he's coming off of a 15 with a goal and a clean sheet, but I like him. I like the way he plays, and I really like the way he matches up in these two games. I am a little worried about rotation, but I still think he's one of the strongest from Red Bulls for the double game week, at least the way I value my defenders. And then I'm looking at a couple of single game week guys to fill that out. Maybe tempted to double up on either one of these teams, grab an extra defender just to see, but I haven't had good luck doubling up on defenders this year, so I'm hesitant to do that.
Did you mention? No, that's a single game week player. Sorry. I saw part of your roster. That's right. We're just talking about double game week players this week.
Yeah.
I got thrown off. Ashley.
Yeah. I overlap with a lot of things that Blayne said. I like Philly defense this week. I think I like Minnesota and Seattle for this week and this round for doubles. My only hesitation there is Minnesota I feel a little more comfortable with. Seattle is going to be missing Arriaga, Nuhu, Christian Roldan, which I understand is not a defender but can have an impact. Alex Roldan as well. So I'm just a little hesitant on principle. I think that's a defense that I should like, but it kind of just depends on who ends up rolling out for that first lineup against Vancouver, because I don't like a clean sheet as much when you put Sissoko or and Shane O'Neill in there together or something like that. I do differ for the Philly defender that I picked, but it was more of just a gut and then stats that I like more to make me pick up Elliott. I think either Glesnes or Elliott are good shouts for Philly with Wagner suspended. My Seattle defender that I like, that I know is going to play, is Jimmy Madronda. The way that he's been able to kind of like revitalize his career in Seattle is more than I've ever seen. I know when he was at Sporting, he was everyone's favorite, gets subbed out with the clean sheet still, fantasy player. But with Seattle, he's scoring goals, he's assisting goals. He's also getting subbed out with clean sheets sometimes too. So if I'm going to pick up anyone from that defense, it's probably going to be him. I think you might hear some shouts for Yamer, or maybe even Brad Smith if he's back from health and safety protocols. But I personally am gravitating towards Madronda. And then I like Gutman too from Red Bull. I've been kind of more on the Tolkien train, pardon the alliteration, but I've always kind of gravitated to him more. But in the last couple of weeks, I think that Gutman's been a better pick. I think he may have been a better pick a lot of times, but I think he's probably a better shot this week. It just depends on how they come out in formation, because I do like when they play Tolkien as a midfielder instead. I think you can kind of go back and forth between either of those players, Nealis as well maybe. And then I'm also picking up Tabasi from Minnesota. I will wait for Christian to tell me if that is a good or bad idea. But I like the numbers that he's been putting up lately. I do like them at home against a Colorado offense that's kind of sputtering, and then going into Austin. I do think Austin is clicking into a scoring groove, but that team is still such a kind of unpredictable unknown that I'm willing to take that chance with them playing twice. So
Yeah, great picks. I definitely double up with some of you guys as well, triple up with some of you guys as well. As far as clean sheets, I do like Red Bulls, as I already mentioned, just for weakness of Miami and sort of the struggles that New York City has been going through. I like a chance that Seattle has, at least at one clean sheet this week. I like the chance that Philly has, even as a road team, at a pretty good shot at a clean sheet. Most of that is because they're against Cincinnati in the first game. And then against Montreal. That's probably the tougher of the two, but I do like them for at least one clean sheet. And I also like Minnesota. I'll throw them out there as far as double game week teams I think have a shot. Colorado has at times struggled a bit to get some offense going, and I think Minnesota has a chance there. And then they're away at Austin, who got it going this last week, but they're near the bottom. There could be another chance at another road clean sheet. Otherwise, there's some, I think, single game week teams that have a good shot this week, so this could be maybe a good week to clean sheet hunt. But in general, that tends to not be where we three have landed. So a lot of it comes down to bonus points, and that's where I'm looking at with my defenders for sure. As far as goalkeepers go, you can't really talk about, I think, this double game week without mentioning some single game week keeper for a keeperoo. Yeah. And so there's two I want to point out right now. You guys have been super gutsy talking about using a New York Red Bull Philadelphia Union keeperoo. That's definitely going to cut it close.
That's not what I said. I'm not jumping on Blayne with that.
No.
I'm going Philly to a single game.
That's Blayne and the people who I've seen in chat. So you guys are super gutsy with that. What I will point out is it is possible, definitely, to get a couple of keepers that have a good shot at clean sheets. So we'll look at New York Red Bulls. We'll look at Philly. Probably two of the top two double game week keepers people are going to look at to see both of their games and still go with a single game week keeper. So if you want to go with New York Red Bulls, you're going to have to wait until next Sunday, but you would still have plenty of time to go with Sporting Kansas City as your backup keeper. I don't know if I like that a lot because you guys do let some stuff in, Blayne. So this is not SKC from a few years ago. So, but that is an option. You can see both Red Bull games before deciding if you want to go with a single game week keeper. The other option is you could go with Philadelphia Union because that wraps up next Saturday. It's the first game of Saturday, October 16th against Montreal. And then after that, you are wide open with all of the other single game week teams. So you could easily go with a Turner from the Revolution. You could easily go with, I don't know, RSL if you think that Colorado, maybe they get that yellow for Abubakar and he's out and you want to go with that. Or if you want to risk something on LA Galaxy or Portland, something crazy along those lines, you have that flexibility to then do that. I think the common one might be Turner, potentially just going for New England against Chicago, which MLS update a little
might be nothing to remember. I don't know if he'll be back on time.
No, that's true. Exactly. And so there's probably if someone is going to be playing after they come back, Turner has a good shot at doing that at the goalkeeper spot. But they have a solid backup at Knighton. So, yep. So I think that's going to be the decision you ultimately come down to is if you want to see both games, you could go with New York or go with Philly, and that would still easily work. The problem with going with, say, a Seattle, who I think Fry is also a great option, is because they have the 8:30 game. That's not going to be over until right at the time of when LA and Portland are starting. So you're really only left with LA, Portland, and Sporting Kansas City as your options, which are not super high. I mean, Malia maybe, but I don't know. I'm kind of iffy on that one. So, because Vancouver's been scoring, they've got some stuff there. But I wanted to point that out as far as keeperoo options, and I haven't decided that myself right now. I mean, right now I have New York Red Bulls and a Sporting Kansas City swap, but I'm just so on the fence, and I do kind of like the idea of doing Philadelphia Union, New England, maybe a little bit better for the players I'm looking at. After that, I agree. I like Gutman. I like Nealis there with Red Bulls. I think one thing people might be looking at this year this game is really going heavy with the Red Bulls. So going with two defenders and a goalkeeper could be something you do this week that could be profitable from a fantasy point of view. And you guys are absolutely right. Gutman has been doing very well with bonus point production right there. After that, I agree with you, Ashley. I like Elliott. He has higher bonus point numbers than other options than Glesnes with Philadelphia. Not by much. They're really close. Elliott's got a couple more offensive points and then 40-something, 43 defensive bonus points, and then Glesnes has 36, 37 defensive points. So they're pretty close, but I like Elliott for some of that just solid bonus point generation, and so he's the Philly person that I lean to. The other question is, do you want a single game week player? We will cover those options. I think this round, going with three double game week defenders and then two scrubs, two Dallas guys, will probably give you the most flexibility for your team. I don't know. Maybe you can find a midfielder or a forward. I struggled a little bit with my forward, so maybe a defender and a forward might be an option if you want to go with a single game week guy. Because I think there are a few you could look at, but definitely a position where you could use a single game week guy, but I don't think you have to. All right, let's move on to our midfielders. Ashley.
Yeah. You know, I did what I think some people did, probably not as many who will admit it. I balked when I saw that Gald wasn't starting and dropped him. I didn't like him enough to keep him on a single, and I was mad about it because I switched him to Mihalovic, who did not do as well as he did in two shots. So I'm definitely picking him back up this week. I also like Lucho Acosta. He's a player that I picked up occasionally. But in the same token, every time my husband does it, I'm like, why are you picking him up? He's in such a slump. And then he goes crazy. So I feel like it was Christian a few weeks ago who said Lucho at home is not the same Lucho. And statistically, I think that that's moderately accurate, more accurate than not. But with the games that they have in this stretch, I think I definitely want him on my team. I'm also going back and forth between Laud and Fragapane. I know Fragapane had a better week last week, but just generally, I like Laud as a fantasy player better. I like where they play him positionally when they don't have a real striker. I like where they play him when Reynoso's out. So even though he didn't produce this past week, I think that is probably the Minnesota midfielder that I like more. I'm also not 100% sold on a Minnesota midfielder, but if I am, I think that's where I want to go. And then, barring any fluke reactionary suspension, I do like Joao Paolo. I think that he tends to carry a lot more of the load during these international breaks when Christian's gone. He's, like we've said before, he's on the corners. He's on most of the set pieces. There's not going to be the same offensive power in front of him in an international window, but I still think that I like him this week. A differential pick for me who's been picking up a ton of bonus points, but I haven't seen come near the goal is Josh Atencio. Back when budgets mattered, he was a great budget pickup, but he's doing a lot all over the field, but he's not doing enough for me to pick him up. But he is someone that I think could kind of stand out in this week where a lot of the traditional starters, the Cristiano Ronaldo, Reid, Diaz, etc., are out. And then I'm floating back, between a couple single game week players, which we can touch on next week. But for the players this week of this round, those are the middies that I'm looking at.
All right, Blayne.
Yeah, I'm in a lot different frame of mind here. I think double game week might be more of a trap this week than anything. Christian just mentioned it in chat. Laud's probably called up. Minnesota's a potential rotation risk. I mean, Fragapane has been good. I like him, but I don't necessarily like the potential for rotation here. You are banking on that second game when you go Minnesota because I like Colorado's defense regardless. At home, on the road, Colorado's got a good defense. This is a Minnesota team that can get goals, but where are they coming from? Who's going to carry the load? If you don't have that double and triple threat like we like from them, are you going to have a guy like Fragapane really freed up to do the extra work and carry the load? Or is he get double teamed and shut down? It's just where does this line up? And so I'm seeing trap all over this one. I like Joao Paolo most of the time. I've got him in draft, but he doesn't wow me in the fantasy game enough. Like, he just had his great game. I don't see another double-digit game for a while. He's one of those guys you go to for a 7, 8, 9, and he's consistent on that. And I'm not trying to play that way right now. I want to try something different. So I'm kind of shying away from most of the double game week guys. Now I am going to stick with Jack Price. The potential for double digits is there all the time. He's on set pieces. I know this is 2 road games, but I think this is a chance where he's going to get some more points and he'll be fine. And then I'm going with Lucho Acosta as well. I'm going to bank on that Orlando game, getting something done. I just don't trust Orlando enough, and I think he's my double game week midfielder that I really expect to do something. Other than that, I'm really kind of shying away from double game week guys. There's 2 names that I want to see where they line up and what happens in that first one because I like the first games a lot. And the first one is Omir Fernandez for Red Bulls. I'd love to get a Red Bull midfielder in here, but I'm not wowed by any of them enough. Sean Davis has got a solid average, but he never lights up the score sheet. Fernandez is one of those guys who's scored a few times lately. Seems to be getting in there, but there's so much rotation I can't really pick it. But if Miami comes out with a rotated lineup and Red Bulls puts out the right guys, maybe I'll look at that one. And then I want to see what I feel when the Philly lineup comes out, because Monteiro is the other guy that's double game week that's been on my list just to keep an eye on. I haven't seen him do enough since he's come back yet to really say I'm going to go grab him, especially with 2 road games. But I want to see that Philly lineup opposite what Cincinnati does, and maybe that's enough to sway me. But right now, I'm looking at my single game week guys that are already in there that I'll talk about next week, and I don't see anybody else beating out one of my single game week guys that I have so far. And that says a lot because I'm looking at 2 road single game week guys too. So I'm putting double game week guys behind road players for next weekend. So that's it. I'm not sure I'm going to make any of those changes. So Price and Acosta are my 2 double game week guys that I'm prepping for this weekend. I'm going to let the rest ride.
I think I could guess which road midfielders you are looking at, but I think the competition's a bit more staunch than maybe you're giving it credit for. I think overall at midfield, this is again a position where I would not scrub a position here for a switcheroo or an autoroo. Maybe it's the best option at times, but I think you could have 2 at least single game week guys I think could challenge for positions here. This is definitely a round that has opportunities for single game week players to have good scores. Other than that, I think you guys have touched on a lot of them. I like JP for what he's done without Ladero, and with some of the other guys that will be missing. I think a lot of that focus will be on him, and he has good opportunities. I like Acosta as a bench play and at home. I think that'll be good. And new GM, who knows what's going to happen? Maybe we'll get a new GM bump without a new coach bump. And like Gald as well. I think he's had some solid times. It's interesting that you mentioned Davis, Blayne, because Davis is, of the double game week players, the 2nd highest bonus point. Well, he's actually tied for the most bonus points produced. However, I call him 2nd because most of his bonus points are defensive bonus points, and that's exactly, in my opinion, why you are having that reaction of he's not really lighting up the score sheet, because you're looking at maybe a 7 as like he's gotten 9. 9 has been the highest he scored at least once or twice this round. But other than that, I mean, you're looking at a 5-point flourish, maybe 7 as a reasonable expectation. But number 1 is João Paulo, and as far as I'm concerned, because he splits the defensive and offensive bonus points. Most of his points are also defensive as far as generation, but he does have a nice collection of attacking bonus points as well. Reynoso is one of the leaders. It's not, if not the leader in attacking bonus points, but we're not going to have him for the first round at least. So not on the table. I love your Monteiro shout out. That's one that I was keeping an eye on as well. I think this could be a good opportunity for him. That could be a nice little pick there. Other than that, I mean, yeah, Price, it's okay. He's gotten some more of those doubles recently. It's the road games that are making me hesitate with that. And I do think that he is an option where a single game week player could have a better one game than Price for his opportunity. If you're just looking for that double, I think there's some single game week guys who could easily get in the teens that could be a swap for Price. But for some reason, I don't know. I guess I feel like I'm always ragging on Colorado, and I don't mean to do that at all. I just don't like Barrios. That's really all it is, and I don't like.
Corrupts your whole view, doesn't it?
It does. Like it's the whole. I mean, that's a derby right there. RSL in Colorado, and I don't know. I don't know. This Price is definitely on my list. He's a guy I often look at, especially in double game weeks. But I do feel like some single game week guys challenge for that spot in particular. Let's move on to a quick check. Anybody else? Just want to make sure we don't overlook anything. Yeah, no. Who cares about Miami? Sorry. Let's go on to forwards. Blayne.
Yeah, double game week guys, there's really only one name that jumped out at me, and I know that means Higuain is going to have a multi-goal game somewhere in here, just because none of us are going to take any Miami players, so it's bound to happen. But no, I like Shavilka this week. As random as it is, he's had by all accounts, a terrible year. I mean, just he's had a few games recently. I mean, he's kind of saved face recently. We're talking about him again. But no, with this set, with the way he's been playing lately, I think he's got a goal and an assist in one of these games. Maybe he'll get it. Maybe he'll split him between the two games. But I really see him stacking something on the score sheet, getting on there twice in some capacity in one of these two games. I'm thinking it's going to be the Cincy game, but I don't know. The way he lines up against Montreal could be good. That's one of those games that just kind of makes me think. I think Philly can go in there and do some damage on the road. I think Montreal's a good team. Montreal's going to find a way to score. I think it's going to be a battle. I don't know. I feel like Shabilko's going to have something this week. I like the way he's been playing in the last few weeks. He's turning it around, and I feel something there. So I'm going to go to the elephant in the room, and everybody else can talk about why they would take him. Ashley said it best earlier. Lightning rarely strikes twice. I'm not going with Brian White for this round. I can't do it. I'm feeling that Seattle defense, even with rotation, they're all battle tested. They've all played quite a bit. It's on the road. I don't like Cascadia games for that reason. I don't see him getting it, and then I see a potential rotation risk against Kansas City at home. I don't know if White's going to go 180. I don't know if he's going to go 120. Make a cameo appearance somewhere. I don't trust it. I would want the second game. I don't trust the rotation. So I'm going to go ahead and fade White this week. If he were to start the Sporting game, I would absolutely take him. If you can guarantee me he's playing that second game, I'll put him in. But nobody can do that. Cavallini doesn't have that much travel playing there. He can come back and go. I don't know how much he's playing for Canada. Dahome's been starting up top. There's a lot of rotation. I don't know what those games are going to look like. I can't get any guarantees. And typically coming off a hat trick, a guy doesn't do much in those next couple of games. I don't like Seattle. I can't guarantee he's going to start. So I'm going to go ahead and fade him. And I know I'm probably in the minority given that he's coming off a hat trick. He's a double game week guy. 2 bites at the apple for a forward is what we all want all the time. I just can't do it.
Ashley, who do you have, and do you do it?
Yeah, I also like Priz. I'll just say that up front. He was one of the first players that I added to my team. I do like Brian White. Seattle is starting one of their regular 5 starting defenders. Jimmy Madronda I would not consider a regular starting defender. They are missing Christian Roldan, who is their best defensive midfielder. And they are coming off a very, very strenuous stretch of game. It's a home game, and it is a Cascadia game. But I've watched much worse Vancouver teams come into that stadium and grab points. So for me, like I said, he has been slowly churning out these goals, slow enough that we're not talking about it, but often enough that he's getting a rhythm. He's doing better here than he ever did at Red Bull. He has proven himself to be, some of it's been from injury and some of it's been from call-ups, but he's beating out Cavallini to be this team's striker. I think, I did say earlier, Lightning doesn't often strike twice. I'm not expecting him to get a hat trick. But when I look at some of these other single game games, which again, I know we'll touch on next week, sure, I think there are options for multi-goals. I think that, Atlanta going into Toronto, maybe. I think that, Atlanta going up to Toronto. I think Orlando going to Cincy. I think that there's some goals to be had in some of these other places, sure. But SKC leaks goals on the road. They've tended to. I don't think that they're foolproof up in Vancouver, where they haven't had to travel to yet. Or have they gone there? They didn't go there before, right? The last time that they played, I think, was when Vancouver was still in RSL Stadium. It's not a simple shout of a game for an SKC team that they'll get to play at home where he's scoring a lot. So I'm not captaining him. I'm not like on the Brian White train by any means. But for me, with the games this week, I do agree that some of these double game weeks feel like a trap. But for me, I think Brian White, at the very least, can just be on your team. With some of the other options out there, I think it's a disservice to say, oh, he got a hat trick, I won't pick him up this week, when neither of his games are exceptionally, awful matchups. So, yeah, he's on my team, and I feel okay about it.
I will also start out with that question, and I will say he is on my team, and I will disagree that this is a lightning strikes twice situation. If you think, oh, I'm going to get Brian White because I'm going to get another hat trick, yes, that is absolutely lightning strikes twice. But it's not like he's been playing all these time and all of a sudden he gets a hat trick. You're like, yeah, he has, in his last 4 games, he scored a goal in 3 of them. Before that, he has a couple of blanks. Let's see here, 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. He has scored in 6 of his last 9 games at least 1 goal. So,
and one of those games he didn't play a full game.
In one of those games, he didn't play a full game. To answer your question, I don't know if he'll go 180 or what. This guy's going to go like 150. This guy is not playing 90 minutes. So I think you're looking at 120 to 150 minutes from Brian White. I think you're looking at a shot at goals in both games. And for a round like this, I know we're all hoping for braces from people, and maybe that's what you're going for, but I think White's got a good shot, especially if Seattle does come in there and does some rotations like that, which is not uncalled of. So I think it's not 100% fair of saying that Brian White is a lightning strikes twice kind of guy when he has some level of form and consistency that we can look onto to justify this being a reasonable shout out for this round. So, but I get it if you're looking for a differential, and I get the worry about if you're solidly looking for, I want a guy who has a good chance at giving me a brace. Maybe he's not the guy that you're looking for. I can give you that. Other than that, Shibilko, I think that's one that definitely is going to be on everyone's short list. And as far as double game week guys go, it's going to throw Brenner out the window because nobody wants that. I think Red Bulls, you like them more for defense this week than maybe for offense, especially since it's kind of hit or miss with the offensive players. Hell, like you said, Blayne, Higuain will probably come in and get a double hat trick since no one's going to be picking anybody from Miami. Other than that leaves. Go ahead.
Miami has given up a decent amount of PKs this year. I don't have a solid number for it, but I know it's definitely happened. So if you feel the need, I would say Klamala over anyone, but I echo you here that I don't know that I love Red Bull for offense this week.
Right.
And I think you say that I would be willing to risk Klamala over White this week just before the games go. And that's Reid. You hit it on the head, and I was going to jump in with that in a second. I'm looking for more than just a single goal. I'm not saying White's not going to score. I'm looking, and that's what I'm kind of doing since I'm not in Champions League. I am playing for that top 100 still, but I think the game's changed. I think going through this season, the full season, everybody here, no COVID, short list, none of this 15 games thing. I think what separates you is finding the multiple goals rather than the singles and taking the steady points. So I'm going to use the end of this season to try to figure out if you can predict or kind of get a jump on where multiple goals are coming from. And so that's I guess that would be my big thing with White. Is I don't see a multi-goal game here. That's the lightning strikes twice. I don't see a multi-goal. If he gets a goal and an assist, I would call it a win for him, and I'll probably miss out on some points there. I want to see if I can track down some multiple goals, and so that's why I'm avoiding him. And I think Klimala, in my eyes, has a better chance at a goal and an assist over Brian White having a goal and an assist or 2 goals.
The only reason I think your eye could see it is if you're looking at the number of shots that he produces, because in his last few games he has had a little bit higher of a consistency of shot production. White did get 6 shots in his last game, and he has a few games with some higher shot numbers, but is not getting as many late as Kamala. But if you're looking at producing multiple goals, I don't think Kamala is on any different platform than White if you look back through what they have produced for us this year. I don't know if Kamala has produced a brace this year at all, where at least you do have that. So yeah. I don't think if you have to just be looking at shots then, because other than that, I don't really see how White or Kamala are on any different kind of plane.
I'm going gut reaction there, and Ashley said it. Kamala takes PKs.
Sure.
And I think both Miami and New York City are good chances where a PK could come up for him.
Sure.
And it's just, it really is that. It's just, I'm not trying to bag on Brian White. He's been one of those draft guys that I've been all over, and I've brought him in a couple of times this season as a rental player when he's had some form. Brian White's one of those guys I've had on my short list for a long time. I'm trying to find multiple goals, and I think Klimala has a better chance at him. And I didn't even bring up Klimala in my section.
Sure.
It's the PK thing right there for him, almost 100%.
And the last thing I think we have to mention, at least to get feedback on, since we have Ashley with us this week, is Rui Diaz, who would likely be
He got
called up, but even coming back, or...
So he was questionable going into the weekend. That hamstring injury seemed legit. It's illegitimate enough for him to get called up.
See, that's what I was wondering, was the hamstring, to not go? Is he going to, not even stay? Okay.
The hamstring was definitely legit based on how he didn't practice and how he looked after the game. But if you're looking at a Seattle striker, well, most times it should only be Rui Diaz. But I think you see Bill Bruin and Freddie Montero go both. That, not to take from my own switcheroo picks, but... Rui Diaz, if you see Rui Diaz in one of the games this week, I'd be shocked.
And that's what in my notes why I had Rui question mark, is because I wanted to ask about that injury. Was that him trying to game to stay, or because I know he's looking for that golden boot? So
yeah, he sure is.
So I wasn't sure. All right, well, yeah, let's go ahead and move on to our switcheroo section, because I think you're the only one that really has any.
I did it.
You did it.
Me.
Who do you got?
But listen, I think none of us are going to do it, and I don't know that I even feel incredibly confident in advising it in our current position. But I think if you don't mention Higuain as a switcheroo on an Inter-Miami double game week, it's a disservice. Am I going to do it? No. But these are the weeks when we don't talk about him, that he puts in 3 goals in 2 games or something, right? So, I don't know. Every time I watch Inter-Miami, I feel like they're an absolute dumpster fire. But he's still putting up a moderate amount of goals, not as much as you would think for a player of his caliber, but still a decent amount. If you see, an A squad, whatever Inter-Miami's A squad is, I mean, it's definitely a differential pick. Like I said, I don't know that I want him on my bench, but he's got 2 games. He's still been starting. And then the only other double game week player that I like as a differential is Bill Bruin. He gets these little ticky-tack bonus points when he gets a full game. He is in the fullest of health, and by that I just mean he should play more than Freddie Montero. And he's been contributing a lot in goal-scoring opportunities this year, even though he isn't scoring often at all. So again, I think there's better single game week shouts. But Bill Bruin should go in both games. I would even venture to say Bill Bruin will go in both games this week. So, I think against a kind of dicey Vancouver back line, and then going into Houston, who's super inconsistent, and not to mention Houston's where he played the majority of his career. So I think Bill Bruin is definitely a differential switcheroo that I'm not positive I want to pull the trigger on, but I think he's definitely appealing.
Love it. Love it. And I will say Miami's second game is against Columbus, which has been a team that has been struggling this year. But no, yeah, not a huge Higuain fan. I mean, I don't think it would be fair to say the guy came here to retire. The dude came here and it's just languished. That's all it is. It's been nothing.
He's collecting a paycheck and walking around the field.
Yeah, there we go.
No, I want to echo kind of Ashley. She's talking about Higuain. I just think I got to do this. Pizarro. Now we've said his name enough. He can't do anything in the week. If we talk about him at all, he's going to get a brace, and we're all going to be kicking ourselves. So I think you said it a couple of times earlier, Reid. I think we said his name enough. Now he can't do anything, and we're good.
We gotta like it. Let's wrap everything up with captains. Blayne, who do you have?
I'm looking for multiple goals and assists. I'm looking to get on the score sheet twice somewhere. I think I'm going to go with my gut and double down and just say Shabilko. I've got that feeling that he's going to get on the score sheet twice in one game somehow. So I'm going to double down on that one. I'm so torn. I want to go with the midfielder, but I'm not in Champions League, so let's go back to my forwards, boom or bust, and I really think he's got it.
It's a good call. Ashley?
I am honestly leaning towards a single game week player, which I know goes against everything we recommend people to do. But if I was to look at any of the doubles, I like the Shabilko shout. But for me, it would probably be on JP. Probably a little homer. Just like Blayne said, he's an 8 or 9 point guy, and I know that going into it, which is why I'm probably leaning towards someone on a double. But of all the midfielders available in doubles, he's the one that I gravitate towards the most.
Yeah, I agree with Ashley on this one. My gut still says midfielder. I love the Shabilko shout out. I don't know, forwards have just burned me so much that it's hard for me to go with that. I mean, I'm looking at JP from a bonus point producing point of view. I've seen some teams in the Discord chat that have had a defender captained. I mean, maybe you could be looking at maybe a 22 point captain out of that. I don't like defensive captains because it's just so easy for one little goal to mess everything up. You have far less chance of that with a defender. I mean, maybe you get a 12 or something, a 10 or a 12 with the defender if they give up a clean sheet, but still have a solid bonus point production time. But it's really rough. So, I mean, I think someone like a João Paulo is going to be a good shot. I think Shabilko would be a good shot. You could definitely go with a single game week person as a third option, but you might even look at Galt as a third captain option this week, depending on what he can do, especially if a rotation heavy Seattle comes out. So that's going to be something to look at right there. But I don't think a single game week captain is bizarre for this. I think there are some solid midfielder single game week players who could challenge for a road. I'll add road onto that. Players that could challenge for a captaincy spot based on their matchup. So not outrageous.
I'm right there with you on that part. Like if it's not Shabilko, it's a single game week guy.
Yeah.
And the thought crossed my mind about looking at a defender this week with the way Red Bulls have been playing, and I know it's like I'll never do it. You can't do it. That's one of those golden rules. You don't break that golden rule. But if you're Team Tolkien instead of Team Gutman, and you've seen some of the offensive production Tolkien has gotten and how much he's done, he's had an 18 and a 15 recently. And I think both one of those included a clean sheet. I'm not sure if both of them did. But if you're looking at Tolkien and you know a little bit more than we do about how they play, Tolkien,
Shannon.
Yeah, at home versus Inter Miami for the clean sheet potential, but then also the offensive potential. I can see where that's coming from. But you're looking at a defender who has a decent clean sheet potential to go with a huge attacking upside. This is like old school Ryan Hollingshead when he was playing on the wing and he was getting you a 6, 7, 8 regularly without a clean sheet. And then you're playing against a weak defense where you're expecting a goal or an assist or multiple, and then you've got a good clean sheet potential on top of it all. This is when you start looking at defenders and you go, okay, maybe I can justify it this one time because they're an attacking-minded player playing out of position, and they have the clean sheet potential to stack on top of that. Because if Tolkien has one of those monster offensive games against Miami like he can, we're talking about a 12, 13, 14 in that. Tack on a clean sheet, we're looking at a 20-point captain right there. Like,
Sure.
that's what people are looking at, and I don't think Discord's wrong in looking at somebody like him for that, but he's the only defender I have on my list that could possibly be there.
Yeah.
And I'm going Gutman over Tolkien, so there's no way. But Reid said it. I know where the argument goes. I know why somebody would do that, but Tolkien's playing defensive mid most of the time doing that. If he doesn't pick up those bonus points and they give up a goal, you're now staring at a 6-point captain.
Yeah, and those times when he got that, like, he has a clean sheet and a goal and a clean sheet and an assist. Those are his 2 double digits, and he doesn't shoot a lot. So the goal is not going to be as consistent. The one where he got the assist, he had 4 key passes, so that was great. He had 3 key passes and 3 crosses in the one before, so he can produce some offensive bonus points that do help, but that's not consistent. So like, I'm Team Gutman all the way as far as it goes with Red Bulls this week. So yeah. All right, well, that is all that we have for the show tonight. Thank you so much, everyone who joined us. Remember, part 2 will be next week at our usual time. I will be broadcasting from the remote MLS Fantasy Insider Studio, but as I'll be on fall break. But we will have a part 2 where we focus on the single game week team. So don't worry, we didn't skip anybody. Those single game week guys are still an option. I think every position has the ability to have at least one single game week player in them. I think you could get by with not having anybody on your defense, but I think every other position has at least the potential to have a single game week player be very viable for this round. So be sure to leave some space in your team for the single game week guys. The easiest way to do that, like I said, in case you're worried, throw in a Dallas player. You've got 3 players. You can throw your Dallas guys in. They will not play, so you're good to go with that. But we'll get into more depth on that next week. So let's wrap everything else up with plugs. Blayne.
Yeah, big plug this week. Bucket Hat Brigade. I've got my camera all over there. Ari sent me this wonderful scarf. For
Ari.
Yeah, Ari. Yeah. So Ari is another member of the Bucket Hat Brigade. I don't think I'm an official member, but since I wear the hat all the time, and Ari's noticed it. Ari loves the hat. Ari is another Bucket Hat fan as well.
Yeah.
He sent me the scarf this last week. Absolutely love it. Been sitting here behind me all through work and everything. Just got to find a good spot to put it behind me. But massive shout out to Ari. He's a huge fan of the show. He's been on the show a couple of times. Just love the guy. One of the nicest guys I've met in the community. Had several conversations with him about more than just soccer, and we share a mutual fondness for several players in the league, including Gadi Kinda. So massive shout out to Ari. Thank you so much for the scarf. It'll sit behind me proudly, and just thank you again for all that you do for the community for us, because you're just one of the most welcoming guys we've got around here.
Awesome gift. Ashley.
Yeah, I am going to plug Carlos Heel because we haven't said his name yet, and I feel like if we go an entire episode without saying it, the episode won't exist.
Single game week. That's fine.
I know, but still, like,
good.
It just didn't feel right. I noticed it when it just didn't feel right. He's my plug.
That's fair. As of course for myself, MLSFantasyBoss.com, the MLS Fantasy Boss Discord, the 2 best ways to get involved with this community. Thank you so much to our Patreon supporters. You all should have been receiving swag. I've gotten a couple of letters back in the mail. I'll be reaching out to you all to see if there's an updated address, but that has gone out. As you can see behind Blayne, we have Gators that went out this year, as I previewed earlier in the episode. If you saw that, we have the face masks that have gone out, as well as our usual sticker. We had the special magnets that came out this season. I might make that a regular deal, and let me know what you guys think in the comments, or shoot me a message on Twitter. Maybe we'll have a yearly sort of Patreon magnet that you all can vote on. We'll get a special design. Like we'll have a rebrand every year as far as the magnet goes. We'll get a circle logo like Chicago and everybody else has, and we'll see.
Rebrand.
That's right. The rebrand, the Patreon rebrand, just for the magnet. So that can be fun. If you guys like that, let me know. And of course, for our highest supporters, I hope you enjoy the little acrylic pins that we have.
Yeah, the acrylic pins are awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
Really fun. Maybe
My
we'll do
son
something
put
like that.
his on his school backpack proudly on his own accord. It was
awesome.
adorable. Yeah.
That is awesome. But thank you so much to all of you who continue to support the show. I'll be working on refreshing some of the support tiers. I know the Discord auto sign-in didn't really work this year, so that's some stuff we're going to try to flush out during the off season. Then I have some new stats that I'm sharing on Discord. Let me know, or sorry, not on Discord, on Patreon. Let me know if you like those, and just see if that's something you want to see continue. But so humbled by what you all do to help support the show and this project that's been going on for 7 years now. It's crazy. The time just flies. Thank you again, everyone who came out to listen to the show tonight. We'll have this episode up later for listening on your favorite streaming service for podcasting of choice. But until then, as always, good luck.